I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the gripping narrative of Baldip Kaur's Let Me Live. This book is a work of fiction that confronts the dark underbelly of society where no child is safe from immoral forces. Through the lens of compelling characters battling against cultural constraints and personal demons. Join us right now as we explore the challenges of love, human fragility, and the strength of a feminist voice in a dramatized societal critique. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 for letting us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her important work. The link is below this interview. Baldip, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you, Logan. Thank you for having me.
When you were on our show last time, we talked a little bit about your book, I Can't Breathe, which focused on racial inequities in the world, particularly George Floyd, who of course couldn't breathe because he was being knelt upon by a police officer. Now you've turned your focus to another section of the world and human trafficking. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's not exactly human trafficking. It is actually, I was inspired by the Ukrainian war. And child trafficking is actually the result of a war because there are lots of vulnerable children. And if there are predators, they just sort of, catch, they lure them into that. And I have Russian characters in my book, which were in my last book as well, who actually kidnap children and bring them to a network in London. So from there, I actually cover 3 layers, and not only of child trafficking, it's also on social context, how women are oppressed, which we spoke about in my last book as well. But in this book, there is one special theme or not subject, which is some cultures or most cultures actually do not like having girls. Unfortunately.
That's
so
great.
I picked up on that, and I have reeled it around the characters, fictional characters, and one of the characters was in my last book, I Can't Breathe. So she was a lawyer who fought or struggled for women, and I have got her in this book as well. And she's fighting the same fight, but in a different aspect, which is of saving children or unborn children as well.
And it's interesting that you said it in Ukraine during the war, that you're writing as the war is still raging, which I think is interesting as well. What do you hope folks learn from this? What kind of insight do you hope to give to them when it comes to war-torn areas such as this?
I think it's important to realize how vulnerable the women and the girls become, and how greedy the people around, not only in the world around, who are going to groom them, but also within their culture. For example, I've taken a refugee from Afghanistan. She is escaping the Taliban. Her father sells her into this child grooming network. So it brings out a lot of not very nice in people.
Yeah, it's a dark side of people.
It's a very dark side of evil, as you explained earlier. But then on the other hand, I have got character like Khushbu, who actually fights for the women, as in the last book, for abusive women who are in abusive relations, and in this case, in this book, for women, for children who are unborn, who are threatened that they will be killed because they are girls. So she takes on that fight, as well as the fight of child grooming as well. So that is also covered in this book. And I'd like to explain here that because I have got different layers of the book, I have started each one with a poem, as I did in my last book. So in this one, it's a poem about the soldiers and the victims dying in the war of Ukraine, and then the resulting sex grooming network. And then it's followed by the context of the children being under threatened to be killed, girls especially, and then so on and so forth. And then I've also taken superstition lightly. Superstition and tradition, they actually they are actually made to oppress women, I feel, right? Because they are mainly kept alive to oppress women. And for example, there is a tradition that girls are unwelcome. And this is deeply embedded in Indian culture, for example, and I think in other cultures as well. So I have got a story around that as well, how they cope. Yeah. How they cope with this embedded, and then it becomes like a honor killing because it's so deeply embedded. It becomes an honor killing, which they justify. So yes, and I hope by in this book, not only will they find it interesting, they will take something back and be aware that not only is there a dark side in this world, that women need not be so suppressed and oppressed and scared by tradition. I think most women are. They want to please their mother-in-laws or others, so they remain in their shell. They needn't be that.
Yeah, and women have it tough in that they have their traditional roles, but now they're also in the non-traditional roles of wage earner and so forth. So they're torn in many, many different directions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they are lucky, they will come across a man. And this also I have discussed in this book. He actually is a very modern man with modern ideas, but he is influenced by his mother, who is of very old-fashioned ideas and who believes in blah, blah, blah. So to please her, he changes his whole point of views or his opinions or modern mindset that he had. So that is also a danger. Then everybody needs to be strong enough to hold on to their opinions, which are of valuable, hopefully.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about the significance of the feminist voice in your narrative and its impact on the story.
Yes. If I may here, Logan, I'd like to bring the character from my last book, which was Khushbu, who actually fought for women's rights. Now she's plays a very important role in this book as well. And she not only she's the one who has a feminist voice, who empowers women, who claims to, not claims, who wants to or struggles to empower women so that they don't have to fight these old-fashioned values. And in so doing, gives them strength. Yeah, and hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me that different cultures such as India, China, just to name two examples, treat women in many cases like second-class citizens. You know, there's a huge, you know, particularly when there was a one-child rule in China, people did not want a girl. They did not want a female child. And in India, it's ironic that we've had some prominent political leaders who are female, yet still the prejudice against females exists, right?
I think there is history. I don't think the educated people are as much as, I mean, I don't think they don't like girls. It's because of the dowry system, because the poor people can't afford to have dowries. And people who have sons, they demand dowries. So when you have a girl, she immediately becomes a burden. You see?
So there's a practical aspect to it.
There's a
It's
practical
beyond.
aspect.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
There's a practical aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
Are you working on any new books right now?
I had thought this was going to be my last one, and actually I had given up on writing. But suddenly now, seeing the war again, all these wars inspire me. You know, what these people go through always inspires me to write. Not necessarily a book, but I think I might start writing again. Not necessarily a book, but a sequel to Let Me Live, because this was on Ukraine. This is going to be on the war in the Middle East.
Yeah. I Can't Breathe, obviously, was a significant title. Tell the folks at home what you mean by Let Me Live as your title for this book.
You know, it's quite multi-layered, but the title speaks for itself. For example, the refugees from Ukraine and other countries, war-torn countries, they are all crying. They have one cry, whether they say it out loud or inside. Let me live. They want to live. It's a cry of an unborn a girl, right, who is threatened. You know, that the parents are threatened that they'll kill her. She wants to live. And in this context, I've also taken a love that is actually fading in this book, which wants to live. so basically, I've also got a poem on that. So it's everything that is fading wants to live.
Yeah.
So it's in different contexts,
Different
everything.
layers, different meanings.
Different layers,
Sure.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. But again, that was not thought of when I was writing. It just came about when I'm thinking about it. I think that I had it at the back of my mind, that it is a multi-layer. And it is also, what is also important, what I thought was, it shows a different side to love. For example, and that is why I say it's written in a bold way, because I have written it without any, sort of no holding back, basically. It's because it's describing love in different, for example, it describes lust when it's sex grooming, exploitation. It's unconditional love, which is, this sacrificing. Then there is love, which is controlling, which is under the social context. So there are different kinds of love, and they all have masks, but they all have different, they are all different messages, and hopefully their characters have to deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The characters in my book deal with them.
Yeah. Have you envisioned this perhaps as a film, Let Me Live?
I would love it too. I'm actually having it narrated into an Audible book because,
Wonderful.
yes, because sometimes when you read it, it comes out as an interpretation of the person who's reading it. Whereas if you're listening to it, it's exactly what I had thought the character would say or portray. So from that angle, I'm having the Audible version. It should be out by July.
Wonderful. So the Audible version will mean it'll attract even more listeners.
Exactly.
People
Yes,
who don't
that's
have
it.
time or
Yeah.
don't like to read for whatever
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
reason is.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
this were made into a film, again, it would reach even more people, the
Of
masses who tend
course.
to
Yes.
consume
And
videos and
because it
film.
is sorry, and because it is so dramatic, it has a lot of potential for
Yeah.
being a film because
Absolutely.
it's
Now it's
very
got
visual.
very
It's very
visual, very
yeah.
timely topic as well,
Yeah.
because of its setting in Ukraine. The name of the book is Let Me Live. It's a bold work of fiction that confronts the dark underbelly of society where no child is safe from immoral forces through the lens of compelling characters battling against cultural constraints and personal demons. It's an amazing story. It's a story of love, human fragility, and the strength of a feminist voice. It's a powerful book. It's a book you won't want to put down. It is a book that is highly recommended. Baldip, thank you so much for joining us here today on
Thank you,
Spotlight.
Logan. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.